Hey, welcome everyone. Hey, this is a podcast that explores various aspects of addiction, potentially focusing on personal stories of recovery, scientific perspectives, societal impacts, or related topics. This podcast often features discussions with experts, individuals in recovery, therapists, and advocates to offer insights and support to those affected by addiction or seeking more information about it. Welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I am your host, Al Richards, and today with our guest, Shane Ericksen, we've got a very interesting topic today that I think our audience is going to find pretty interesting, and it's about medical cannabis addiction recovery facility. I believe there's only one of this kind here in the Salt Lake Valley. However, our guest is going to help us with that and also educate us a little bit more about how medical cannabis is being used for people in recovery. So, Shane, thank you so freaking much for taking time out of your day to be with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Al. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. And I believe Jay, is it Jay that introduced us?
Yeah, I thank Jay profusely. He's got a really good network and knows everybody. And I was so glad he turned me on to you because I know of your podcast, of course. Everybody in the Salt Lake recovery community knows of you and your work. And I just hadn't made an effort to reach out. So I was really glad to get that handoff from Jay.
Yeah, and so thank you, Jay. Yeah, because I was a facilitator at a networking group, and he came to my table, and when I did my little 60-second elevator pitch, after it was all done, he came over to me and he goes, "There's someone you got to meet."
Perfect.
So I'm so grateful. So Jay, if you watch this show, thank you so much for connecting us. I really appreciate it. So Shane, my gosh, you've got one heck of a story. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you actually battled an opioid addiction for what, 2 decades, wasn't it?
It was awful. It was awful, Al. And I worked in healthcare. I had a company called Baby Boomer Consulting. I would build and operate assisted living facilities. And being in that position, I had some chronic pain problems myself. I got started on some Lortab that developed. I was really an OxyContin baby. The boom, the 2002, 3, 4 is when it began with the OxyContin 80s that Purdue Pharma was pushing as completely safe. I abused the heck out of those things. And I lost my career. I've been to jail and prison over it, and just a crippling opioid addiction that lasted 2 decades. And I finally found recovery after 3 times in treatment. But what really did it for me, what really the supplement that I added, the one thing different was medical cannabis. When I was able to start legally using a cannabinoid product, it kind of just something clicked in me where I didn't have those uncontrollable urges, those cravings, where I was able to be present and maintain day by day. And so early in my recovery, I thought, wow, am I a unique case here? Am I a unicorn? Could marijuana really help me stay off all these dangerous drugs? Maybe it's just me. And that was in 2016 that journey began. But I ended up getting out of the assisted living facility. I've transitioned away from that. Now I'm still working with the Department of Health, but it's no longer with senior citizens. It's with at the Department of Health and Human Resources, and I have a recovery residence in a really unique home in right in the heart of Salt Lake in Midvale, right on 7th East. It's actually, Al, it's an old polygamous home, believe it or not.
Oh, holy
So it's
cow.
ideal. It's huge. It's 15,000 square feet with 17 bedrooms. We've got 4 kitchens, 12 bathrooms, tons of walk-in closets and storage. It is just ideal. So I have a 27-bed men's license. And I started in 2019 when I opened. Right out of the gate, I started giving my guys full spectrum CBD products, right? Now, these are products that wouldn't get anybody high. We're talking about a tincture, a gummy that are legal to sell over the counter in Utah, and that became legal in 2018. A miracle happened in 2018. I had just lost a big business deal in North Salt Lake, a real estate deal, and I was really down. I was still sober and clean, but I was really at a low point in my life. And I was just kind of like, Lord, what do you want me to do? Nothing seems to be working out. And he sent a very special friend to me from my past, Sean. And Sean asked me a simple question: what are you most passionate about? And for some reason, this just came back into my mind. I said, Sean, when I got out of treatment in 2016, I really wanted to open a recovery home, some kind of a sober house where guys who leave treatment can go to have a community. I was lucky enough, my college sweetheart stayed with me, which is extremely rare through my addiction, right? We have 5 children. She's my lifeline. I had a home to go home to. But all these friends that I made in treatment, they didn't have a wife or a home to go home to, and they had to just be thrown to the wolves. Go get an apartment. Good luck. I couldn't make it if I was in that situation. So I'm like, somehow I really want to open some kind of a home for guys who are coming out of treatment. And luckily, I had a history with battling cities on behalf of senior citizens, right? Senior citizens are disabled, therefore protected by Americans with Disabilities Act, federal fair housing. And so we can put those facilities wherever we need to, in neighborhoods or, other areas that may not be allowed. Drug addictions have the same protections. And so when I found this home in Midvale, that when I found it, it was boarded up and abandoned, and it was literally a condemned house with a million problems, and people were breaking into it and camping in there and stuff. So a very long journey with the city and getting approval. It was a miracle that they granted me this license for a 27-bed men's recovery residence right on the edge. I'm right between two really nice HOAs, right? I'm in almost Cottonwood Heights, right on 7th East, about 7200 South. I'm right on 7th East in this big old, farmhouse that has 17 bedrooms. Nobody else wants that to live in, right? So the city gave me a reasonable accommodation because addicts are disabled. And I opened that in 2018. In 2020, I could not believe it when the state of Utah came out with a medical cannabis program. I had already been selling CBD for 2 years. In 2018, when I asked the Lord, what do you want me to do? And he put that into my mind. Go and follow your passion, open an addiction recovery home. I was kind of like, okay, that's great, but how am I going to fund this project? 2 days later, no joke, my cousin calls me from Oklahoma. He's like, bro, you got to get into this business with me. It's booming. I just opened a CBD store in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm like, what's CBD? I had no idea that was from my beloved cannabis plant. That's from what saved me years earlier, this cannabis derivative. And it's not about getting high. It's not the THC where the medicine is at, right? It's in these 118 other minor cannabinoids, CBG, CBD, CBN, CBDV. There's a myriad of them. And this plant has evolved with humans for thousands of years, Richard, through all walks of life. It was the primary medicine used in the United States until some powerful interests kind of usurped it and wanted it to go away for a lot of different reasons we don't need to get into today. But I was the first one in Utah to register with the Department of Food and Agriculture a CBD full spectrum product. Full spectrum means it does have a little bit of THC. It can have up to 0.3% by volume. And so I was the first one in Utah to get one of these registered and on the shelf in a retail pharmacy. I work with compounding pharmacies. Mr. Kevin DeMoss, hero of mine. He used to be the pharmacy board in Utah, very highly respected. He owns the Apothecary Shop Pharmacy, which is in Salt Lake Regional Hospital. And if you know that area, there's a lot of University of Utah professors, a lot of congressmen, senators, a lot of important people go to that pharmacy and that hospital. And he had the guts to put a full spectrum CBD product on the shelf. And we did that with everybody watching, the news media watching, with the oversight watching, and it was all according to board, third party tested, and it just exploded from there. And then I got these CBD products in pharmacies all over the state. Number one help is pain patients with opiate titration, right? Studies are showing us that if you augment or add a CBD product to a pain patient's chronic pain regimen, they're going to go maybe 30 to 40% reduction right off the bat in their opiates. We've seen that in Utah. We've seen a reduction since we started a medical cannabis program. People are using less opiates because an opioid and a cannabinoid, they don't fight each other. Okay, they work in conjunction at that same presynaptic nerve junction to help modulate pain. So the end result is cannabis leads to lower opioid consumption, and cannabis has never killed anybody. So that really got people's attention. They've done 3 different news stories on me here in Utah. Hey, this is Utah's first addiction recovery facility that allows medical cannabis. How's this going to go? I had a lot of eyeballs on me, Al. You wouldn't believe the regulators, right? My licensors, of course, were very concerned. They gave us extra scrutiny, extra visits, but the proof is in the pudding. As the years went on, I developed a name for the place that could take the worst of the worst. I'm talking chronic level 3 registered reoffenders, right? Drug addicts, the kind of guys who don't even make it out of the halfway house before they run down to the block and stick a needle in their arm, right? 10, 20, 30 years, revolving door guys. The Department of Corrections and the LDS Church started calling me up. Hey, I got this so-and-so guy. He's a really great guy. He just cannot kick the habit. He never makes it on the outside. Will you take him? Al, we would take those guys sight unseen. Send them Just send them. They would come to Men's Tribal House, and we would have these amazing stories of guys getting off parole, getting back with their families, and they just needed that medicine. Okay. When a guy is a user and he's going to medicate, he's a self-medicator, he's done it his whole life, he's going to reach for something, right? Is it going to be Suboxone? Is it going to be methadone? What maintenance are you going to provide? If that maintenance is cannabis, guess what? He's not going to drain his bank account, Al. He's not going to run out early, run down to the block, go do stupid behaviors. No, he's going to feel calm, centered. He's going to be able to relax and breathe, and he's going to go sit on the couch at Tribal House. He may have a piece of pizza, watch a TV show, talk to one of his brothers. I can deal with this. I can deal with today. Maybe I'll relapse tomorrow. All right. That's always there. Tomorrow's always there. But today I'm going to stay clean. And this little vape cartridge that I got with a doctor prescription, went downtown to Dragonfly Wellness or out West Valley to Beehive pharmacy, and got this legal, lawful vape cartridge. It's been third-party tested. It's clean. It's organic. I take one or two little puffs off of that, and I can deal with life, and it just is an amazing, life-changing opportunity and harm reduction for the right guy. I mean, it's not for everybody. I'm not trying to hand cannabis to every addict out there. I'm not going to give cannabis to an 18-year-old who just barely got hooked on pills. Absolutely not. This is for the right person with a doctor's, coordination. But I just hope that we can start to recognize it as a viable alternative and take some of the taboo away from this plant.
Yeah. And I can understand why you got so much controversy, right? Because of how all this has really been laid out in the past, 10 years or so. And I really also understand that there's certain recovery centers that are not for everyone, right? That's why I think there's so many of them out there. I mean, I know Utah's packed full of all types of different recovery centers. And there's also, everyone's journey is different, right? Like what works for you may not work for me, or vice versa. I know there's still people too that are still, I guess, up in the air about how cannabis works for recovery. Because I've heard people say, okay, well, it's a plant that God put on earth, and I was one of those guys that would say that too back in my smoking days, which was back in the 80s and 90s, which the THC level was so much lower than it is compared to nowadays. I mean, it is. I bet you if I took a hit today, it would probably just put me in bed for a week. I can imagine.
Of the street stuff. I'm really glad you mentioned that. Of the street stuff, which they're hybridizing to just be as high THC as possible. But when you go into an actual, we don't call them dispensaries here in Utah. That's slang. We call them cannabis pharmacies. When you walk into there's 15 of them across Utah. When you walk into one of the 15 Utah cannabis pharmacies, the product you're going to be getting at that point is not going to be like you're talking about, that super high jacked up THC only, because it's the ratio of those other cannabinoids that really produces the medicine. Thanks for bringing that up. You're right.
Yeah. And so I've also heard that there's been studies done for also, and again, I'm all new to this, right? I'm learning, and this is why I'm asking the questions that I'm asking. Have you seen anybody that really has gotten like paranoid, or I mean, no one's overdosed from it, of course. I mean, you even said that. I mean, people are healthy approach.
Well, no one's died from an overdose, but no, you're right. People can overdose, especially with edibles. We do need to be careful. And there are a lot of THC intolerant people, and that's not that uncommon. I'd say maybe 1 out of 15, 1 out of 20 people are THC intolerant. It gives them really bad paranoia. It gives them anxiety. That doesn't mean walk away from the plant. That just means they need a low THC product. Just like the Farm to Pharma products that I first introduced in 2018. Remember, I talked about that first tincture. It's suspended in coconut oil on the shelf of a pharmacy that only has 0.3% THC. That would calm somebody's anxiety. That would help with pain. That would help with sleep. And it does so many things. My father is a regular physician, right? He's a DO who practices medicine and writes prescriptions. And at first, my dad's like, Shane, this CBD stuff you're talking about, it's not a wonder drug. It can't do everything. You say, it gives one person energy. It'll help one person with fertility, help one person with pain. Dad, it's not a drug. It's not a single molecule derived in a lab on the shelf of a pharmacy. This is a whole plant supplement. This is a signaling molecule from nature. So all it does is give the body its own building blocks or nutrients so we can adjust our own homeostasis. Okay, these little cannabinoids have the ability to go all the way to the center of a cell, the smallest part of the cell, the nucleus, and look at the chromosome, the smallest part of the nucleus, and say, okay, Al, you're out of homeostasis over here in your, let's say, your nervous system. Okay, you have fight and flight. We need both of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need excitation to run from a predator, and we need inhibition when it's time to sleep. The problem is we're in a hyper excited state. All the freaking GMOs and the vaccines and the bombardment from, everything else in the world, our terrible diet GMOs, we are like this. So cannabinoids go to your chromosome. They say your nervous system is really hyper excited. You need to release these peptides and these proteins and bring yourself into balance. The body fixes itself. It's really miraculous.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're turning to. It's a plant-based medicine. Unfortunately, that does not translate with the average pharmacist and doctor because they don't work in that realm. They're treating symptoms based on a very specific single molecule drug. They'll just do one thing. They're not going after the root like we are with plant medicine.
Well, and again, I have issues too with I'm not going to say it's all doctors because it's not, but certain doctors, because again, they don't want to fix the problem. That's just how I see it. It's just a Band-Aid, and we've got to have stuff out there that basically fixes the issue, right? Because we don't want people to continuously coming through the doors, but I think the system's set up that way
You're right.
on the medical side of things. And I think even with, and I'm not saying this with yours, I'm just saying I think also there's a lot of recovery centers out there that are set up that way where it's just that revolving door to keep people coming in. And from what I'm hearing from you, it sounds like you also want to be able just to help these individuals so they can live their life, so they can get away from the life that they've had before, because that's what we all want, right? We don't want to be stuck in that, like your 2-decade opioid use, or, we've had other people on the show who, my gosh, 30 years of bath salts and different things like that. And they just want to do something that is working for them so they can go live a normal life and not keep coming back through that revolving door, which so many of us go through how many times. I mean, I've had people on the show that went through 18, 19, 20 rehabs.
Right. Yes.
Something finally worked. When if we could find a solution that works in a 2 or 3 or a 4 year type program, and then a person's life can just go off in the right direction, in the direction that they're always dreamed of, I think that's a blessing for us.
Yeah, I really like that you brought that up. It can be really fast and instantaneous change. When we first started doing this, we were making it up as we were going along. I had teamed up with a doctor, Andrea Loving in Utah, was one of the first in the state to start writing these reasonable accommodation letters before there was a medical cannabis program. And I teamed up with her, and she started doing these letters for my guys at Tribal House. And then we would send them to the cannabis pharmacy, make sure it's all legal. The state would have us keep it in a lockbox, their names on the prescription. I mean, it's flower, it's marijuana bud, but you don't light it on fire. When we light our cannabis on fire, you are destroying all of those amazing minor cannabinoids, the CBG, CBN, CBD. They cannot handle that high temperature. So when you're smoking a joint or out of a pipe, you're only allowing the THC to come through, and that's all you're getting. It's just a recreational product. But when you take the time to vaporize the product, or you have a good tincture or a distillate or a gummy, then you get all of that health benefit. So that's a Utah law called no flame to flower. But we've fine-tuned our program over the years, and now what we're offering is a 30 or 60-day experiential. We have guys coming from all over the country. I've got guys from South Carolina, from Texas, from California, from Seattle that find us and like, oh my gosh, if I could just use cannabis, I could do it. Guys like that their recovery out where they're at won't allow it. Their doctor won't allow them to have an opiate and a cannabis prescription, which is ridiculous. That's so sad. That's what we do at my wellness clinic, Empathetix. We manage people and titrate them down off of opiates. So we get guys flying from all over the country. Just picked up somebody yesterday from South Dakota, bring them to Men's Tribal House where they don't know anybody in Salt Lake. They can't go find alcohol. We don't let them walk out of the house alone. They can't go find a hookup for drugs. And so all of a sudden they're in a new surrounding. They're sober. The very first night we give them a CBD gummy. They don't even need a prescription for that. We help them introduce cannabinoids slowly. Start low, increase slow. And day 2, We're getting them in to see a doctor at Empathetix, and we are big proponents of ketamine therapy as well. They go and see a provider at Empathetix Wellness, and medical cannabis is discussed. What's your drug history? Is ketamine appropriate for you? They can do an in-clinic ketamine injection, which dissolves the myelin sheath off of the neurons in the brain, allows for neuroplasticity, and amazing healing can take place. You see things from a new perspective. You forgive yourself. We have group ketamine sessions at our recovery facility. Everybody with a ketamine troche prescription will take one, and I'll guide them through. I'll tell them things like, you are perfect. You are exactly where you were supposed to be in life. There are no accidents. You are a good person. You are loved. You are accepted. You are worthy. And in such a suggestible state, that really drives deep. And I tell them to just shake your arms, shed that negative stuff, all that darkness, that blackness you've been holding on to, that pain, that regret, that shame. Just let it go, brother. And they'll start shaking their hands. They have eye masks on their face. They're powerful sessions. So we're just using this really these harm reduction tools to speed up the recovery process, and we're having amazing results. And we don't have group therapists, we don't have social workers, we don't have people with name tags. Okay, I'm staff, you're a client. No, we're all in recovery. I'm the owner. I'm in recovery. My house managers who live in the house with these guys are all in recovery. They've all gotten better. We're all equal. Yesterday, they were going to float the Provo River, but the water was too high. So they actually headed all the way up to Causey Reservoir, jumped off some cliffs, swam. We go on ranger four-wheeling rides. We go to the zoo. We do these we hang out at FTR a lot. We love Fit to Recover. Fit to Recover, those are my guys over there. We go to cooking classes. We're going to a movie night tonight. So it's like a fraternity house. It's like a fraternity house, looks like maybe an old biker club, all these dudes with like tattoos and kind of rough looking, but they're so kind-hearted. They're so humble. They're at a point at their recovery where they're grateful for every free, sober breath they're breathing. People are kind to one another. We have 2 dudes in their 70s, a couple dudes in their early 20s, and a lot of guys in between. Nobody cares. We got Hindus, Muslims, Christians, all agreeing on what God is, for example, right? That's what ketamine can do. In a ketamine session, you have a Christian, a Hindu, and a Muslim all saying, duh, there's only one God. He created all of us. He loves all of us. They're just trying to divide us. Who cares that your skin's a little browner than mine? That doesn't mean anything. It just dissolves all of these barriers and all of these false walls that we put up, the way that we see reality. Ketamine dissolves that temporarily. You have a 30,000-foot view now of a memory. Oh, maybe that wasn't my fault. I can forgive myself from that. That's okay that happened. Oh, I see from their point of view. You forgive others. You forgive yourself. That's why ketamine is the most exciting mental health drug around right now. They just finished a 22-year study at Harvard comparing ketamine used in sedation for surgery versus Demerol. If you get Demerol even one time, this is how bad opiates are. One time with Demerol, you have a 50% increase for suicide ideation. You have a higher increase of depression. People don't heal quickly. They go down the tubes. And then you have the ketamine group. Oh, they had ketamine for their surgery. They heal quickly. They have less depression. They are more positive in life. Ketamine, it is kind of scary in addiction recovery because it feels good, right? You feel, I don't want to say the word high, but you are altered during the actual process. But that's not why you do it. You don't do a ketamine therapy because, I felt great for that hour. No, it's for the day after and the week after and the month after that you're able to create new neural pathways, a new normal, right? Someone may have come at you sideways, Al, when you were 10 years old and told you this horrible thing about yourself that you just believed and you took on at that time. And you've been living by that pattern this whole time. Introduce ketamine, brotherhood, love, and you can say, actually, when someone comes at me that way, it's much more healthy to react like this. And that's a new shortcut. That becomes your new normal. Some experts have said that one ketamine session is equivalent to 1,000 hours of talk therapy as far as processing, right? You're trying to get that crap out, live through it, and let it go. So we're just on the edge of these new technologies, and we're so excited about the results we're seeing, and we're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds like. Now, isn't ketamine long-term use, though, that can also be damaging to you as well, right? To the brain?
I don't know about when you say long-term use. What we recommend at Empathetix Wellness is a series of 6 injections, and then you take a break. You can do those up to a week apart. You don't want to go closer than a week. So we space those out. So an average package will have a patient with depression, with mental health issues, with anxiety, with, pain also. It's very helpful for pain modulation. And they'll do 6 sessions over a 6-week period. And then also we have troches that we recommend for a 3-month period. You do twice a week for 3 months, and then you take a break. Ketamine is, you can't really do ketamine daily. It's kind of like almost like a psilocybin type of a thing where you have this release, and it's I mean, it could be a mentally or emotionally addicting, so we're very careful with it. We don't just give a guy a ketamine script. We keep that locked up until it's time to do his ketamine session, and then really they don't have access to it after that. But we're finding more benefit than harm. It can cause some triggers, and that's kind of similar to the feeling I'd get when I used to inject heroin. That's worrisome. We treat it on a case by case basis, but we're not fearful about it. We're seeing really positive results. And I haven't seen a lot. The only thing I've seen damaging is young people. You don't want to give ketamine to an emerging brain. Also THC. You don't want to give high THC or ketamine to anybody, under 21 years of age. So as long as they're adult with a well-formed brain, we've not found an overdose death from ketamine. It is somewhat safe. It's a low classification. You can get it just from a telemed visit. Companies like Mind Bloom really exploded over COVID, and they've become a billion-dollar company sending these ketamine troches out to people with just very simple instructions to journal, to put on the eye mask, because it is a disassociative. So if you're going to disassociate, you don't want to be looking at the walls and the carpet fibers. That really brings you back to earth. When you're disassociative, you're kind of in the cosmos. You feel very connected to nature and to the world and to your ancestors. You feel a great sense of love. It's a similar chemical that is released when people are dying, this bliss molecule that you get, this euphoric kind of release right before death, where people get a big smile on their face, they start to cry, and they become overjoyed. It's a similar tapping into something there in the brain, but it is amazing for traumatic brain injury people. It's amazing for people with severe trauma, especially early childhood trauma. It is the go-to now for psychiatrists for quick, immediate effect. And it's really exciting to see where this is going to go. It certainly will have a place in addiction recovery. Once again, it's not for everybody. We don't just throw a ketamine prescription at any guy that walks in the door. They see a doctor. What medications are you on? We certainly don't recommend it for anybody with any schizophrenia or any really severe psych meds. Also, bipolar is problematic, certain types of bipolar, but we leave that up to our doctors, and we support those care plans. And we're having phenomenal results, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah. Well, when you're helping individuals, I can see why you are excited about it. I mean, that's one of the reasons too why I'm doing what I'm doing, because it's just the joy of knowing that you're out there lending a hand, to somebody. Because I know when I was on the other side of the addiction and not really having no place to go other than Al-Anon, and Al-Anon just wasn't a fit for me. It was just, yeah, it was like trying to put a Cinderella slipper on. It just did not fricking fit for me. I didn't want anything to do with it. And it's helped a lot of other people. So to know that there's other means out there to help people, which I think we're really starting to see that now in the recovery community. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to start my networking group called ARC, which is Addiction Resilience Collective, to let other people know that there's other tools out there. I mean, you know this, Shane. When someone goes to a recovery place and then they're done, whether the insurance is done paying for it, they did 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever it is, they get thrown right back in the same atmosphere that they came from to go in there in the first place. To be able to know that there's so many other things out there that can help an individual stay on their recovery journey in a positive way instead of falling backwards again. Because from what I have seen, and also from guests that I've interviewed, it's like every time you go back to that recovery, it seems to get harder. Either that, or you just you already know how the system is. So you already know what to do, right? You're so used to jumping on the bike and pedaling it uphill. It's just a normal thing to do when it's not really helping.
Yeah. A lot of people that show up at Men's Tribal House have been to traditional treatment many times. A lot of times they've exhausted their insurance resources. The family doesn't have 90 grand to drop to send them to a private inpatient rehab. Plus, they've already done rehab. They're looking for something different. So I'm the lowest cost option. This referral team that I work with, who's amazing, gets 300 to 400 calls a day. And mostly they're sending people to these insurance, traditional inpatient residential facilities. But when somebody needs an affordable option, I'm the cheapest thing on the menu. I'm $6,500. that's one of the biggest things I have to overcome. Families are like, oh, it must be a scam. There's no way you provide a good program for $6,500. I got to explain to them, this is a passion project of mine. I earn my living through my CBD company, Beehive Blends, and Farm to Pharma, as well as my medical cannabis clinic, Empathetix. Men's Tribal House is a passion project. I didn't structure it to be very lucrative. It just needs to break even. We got to get food for the guys, activities, pay the insurance, have a good program. So for $6,500, you can send your husband or your son to Utah, pick you up at the airport, and give them a 30-day experience with cannabis maintenance if they want it. I've got several guys at the house who haven't even had a single CBD gummy. That's just not for them. That's fine. I got maybe 60% of the house that is on a med card or some kind of cannabis maintenance, 40% that aren't. I've got even less, maybe 30 or 40% of them are doing ketamine, and the majority aren't, right? It's a case by case basis. What they're really looking for is a brotherhood, right? Somebody that's not going to judge them, not going to make fun of them, build up their self-esteem, help them realize, no, you're actually a good guy. You're likable. Look, you just showed up 2 days ago, bro, and everybody in the house likes you. You're a good dude. Why are you so hard on yourself? You need to forgive yourself. You're giving everybody else in your life the benefit of the doubt. You give away your last dollar, but you're not going to give yourself any credit at all. You got to just reaffirm that mindset. We don't talk about drugs. When I was in treatment, honestly, some of the worst cravings and triggers of my life, they taught me what methamphetamine is made of and what alcohol does in the brain and how the dopamine is released from these different drugs. We just talk about drugs, drugs, drugs. I was craving so bad. We don't talk about drugs. We don't talk about addiction. That's like a former bad memory. We're talking about today. What are we going to do today? Let's go to a movie tonight. Let's run down. I want to take you down to the river. I'm going to get you to catch a fish here in Utah while you're here. We're too busy just living, right? There's no maids. There's no, cafeteria. We cook meals together. We clean the house together. We're building a deck out back. We have a garden. We're getting some chickens. We do things together. We just live life. We do recreational. Then we do a little bit of service, right? We'll go and we'll box up food. We love going to the LDS canneries and helping them box up food that's going to Haiti. We go and do cleanup projects at like women's sober living houses. And then we just live life. We don't take their cell phone away. We don't put them on lockdown. I mean, if somebody wants to walk to the gas station, yeah, we're going to send somebody with them, right? We're just going to keep our eyes on them, especially at first. But we haven't had any problem. I mean, guys come and have a really good experience. Their families are grateful. We send them home after 30, 45, 60 days, and they have a little foundation, right? They put some work in. They feel better about themselves. If somebody's just getting out of treatment, if it was my son who just got out of like a really intensive 120-day, 90-day inpatient rehab, I would send them to Men's Tribal House for 2 months to kind of transition back into life, right? A little more freedom. There's no therapist, there's no group, but you got good dudes, healthy minded around you. We have a really spiritual weekly house meeting where everybody shares. We do a step each week. We have these energetic healers that come into the house. Hillary is this amazing, does a very specific type of yoga that taps into like deep trauma and release, sound therapy. Amazing gal named Cassandra, who comes in with these deep breathing techniques. These energy healers come in twice a week to the house to bring a little feminine energy, to really get the guys to open up, get things moving. And guys that come in all closed up and tight by week 2, 3, man, they're sharing, they're very comfortable. And it's love meeting harm reduction, right? The ability for that plant medicine, if appropriate, the ability for that ketamine, if appropriate, to speed that along. And then just a traditional therapeutic community of support.
Yeah. And I love that you guys do that, bringing outside resources in, which we was talking about just a little bit ago, to help. Because seriously, I really do believe that is a huge part of recovery. And in all honesty, it's a huge part for anybody's life. When you can bring something else to your life that kind of helps you ground, because I've got 2 good friends who do breathwork class at Fit to Recover the 3rd Wednesday of every month, and I've been going to that pretty consistently, and it's amazing the experience I get every single time. I don't get the same experience every single time. I mean, other than getting cold and getting hot, and sometimes I'm smiling, sometimes I'm crying, but some of the stuff that I see with my eye mask on, and some of the stuff that I feel. It's amazing. Sound bathing, same thing. They do a little sound bath after the fact. And, it just goes to show too, that it's just not for people in recovery when you have a lot of these outside tools. It can be for every day, because I like to use a little thing from one of the Rocky movies. You know, the world ain't no all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and it'll beat you to your knees if you let it, and it'll keep you there if you let it. So, you know, when we allow these other resources to come in to really help us ground and you know, something that you was talking about, what the ketamine does is to help you kind of feel those feelings. And that's something that I think society has really pushed on us, that we're not allowed to feel our feelings. And I think that's why we lock a lot of this stuff in, that also can cause some people, not all people, to go to the addiction, right? Because they don't want to feel the pain. They don't want to feel the hurt. They don't want to feel the trauma or whatever it is that's happened in their life. So, you know, to have other resources out there to help us kind of ground and figure this thing out, I don't know. I think it helps a lot
Mhm.
of people. And again, not one shoe is going to fit everybody, but it's just good to know that we've got other resources out there. So thanks for also bringing other resources into your facility to let these gentlemen know, because once they leave, you know, if the breath work helped them, my gosh, they could go find somewhere else that kind of help ground them back to where they need to be when they were at your facility.
Yeah, thank you. I've had some amazing miracles happen through this process. About 6 months ago, I had a gentleman, it's been about 8 months now, call me up. He's an influencer on Facebook. He gets million views regularly, up to 20 million views sometimes. His name is Quinn Stone. Great guy. Started a company called Cali Sober. And Cali Sober is of this mindset that we can be sober and healthy and not addicts anymore, but use plant medicine, right? Cali Sober with the cannabis leaf on it. He actually moved from New York, came out here to Salt Lake to help me run Men's Tribal House. So he runs our Men's Tribal House page. It's called MedCard Friendly Sober Living, and he gets a lot of engagement. And yeah, it is quite controversial. You know, he's very good at explaining our point of view. We're not trying to push this on everybody. It's not right for everybody, but we believe in, you know, embracing plant medicine. And really, the proof is in the pudding. As soon as a state legalizes medical cannabis, almost immediately they see a 19 to 21% reduction in opioid overdose death. Period. How can you argue with that? If nothing else, yeah, okay, sure, we're not abstinent. We're not claiming to be abstinent. Cannabis can be a tool on my way to abstinence. Cannabis can, it doesn't have to be all or none. That's so hard on guys, right? You go from a hardcore daily drug addict to abstinence, absolutely nothing. Those are pretty far ranging, you know, lifestyles. What if you could transition? What if you could incorporate medical cannabis along your pathway? When I was first getting clean off of opiates, I would rely on cannabis a lot. It would help me with my withdrawals, help me with my sickness. I was using it, you know, every couple of hours. Then after the years would go on, I would use it less and less. And now I use it very sparingly. You know, it's not a daily thing. I don't need it daily. I certainly don't need ketamine even on a monthly basis. It's as needed, and it feels so good to not be reliant on anything. I'm not reliant on Suboxone. I'm not reliant on, you know, Subutex or a shot or methadone. I'm not relying on cannabis. If I didn't touch cannabis for the next 30 days, I wouldn't have a single bit of problem. And so it's just a tool in the toolbox where previously there was very few tools. I remember in 2018 when Utah legalized its hemp program, and they were talking about opioid overdose death prevention tools. Guess what was in the Utah Department of Health's basket? Tylenol, hot bath, Epsom salt, you know, physical therapy, a massage. That is what they were recommending to doctors to help get people off of opiates. Those aren't realistic. But if you have cannabis as an option to swap out an opioid, you're going to have a major dent in opioid overdose death. And with the fentanyl crisis coming in, it is so scary. Everybody downtown, oh, I want to cry for these guys. They're walking around like zombies with those stupid blue pills, smoking them off freaking tinfoil, you know, the blue pressed fentanyl pills. And everybody is just hooked so bad. It's really become an epidemic. And I think cannabis is starting to get more and more recognition. I mean, this isn't my program. This is the Utah Department of Health. You know, they have a cannabis program with doctors and cannabis pharmacies. I'm just utilizing that to help the life of addicts.
Yeah. And I know Quinn. Quinn was actually a guest on my show as well.
Awesome.
And
Yeah,
then
he told me he loved it.
yeah, and then I ran into him last year at a sober New Year's party. Yeah, I ran
Cool.
into him. So that's actually the first time we met in person, which
Well,
was
he was up at Causey Dam yesterday with the boys, jumping off cliffs, having a great time. We're just living it up, man. It is a blast. We love
yeah,
Quinn. He has the best energy. He does sound bath healing sessions for our guys too. He actually lives up at that hilltop house we were talking about with a beautiful view, seeing the whole valley. He'll bring guys up there, lay them on the treatment table, and put an eye mask on them and do a sound bathing. And the guys just feel like they're vibrating. They love it. They come
Ah,
home just with all their cares dropped. Yeah, we love Quinn.
I had no clue that's where he lived because I've seen some
Yeah,
of his videos. I follow his videos every once in a while. I didn't know he was having that many followers. My gosh, maybe he could help me build my social media up some more.
they love him.
Yeah, yeah, he's got a great personality, and he's very very intelligent. So he's definitely a good man.
Thanks, Al.
Yeah. So where do you see things going for you here in the future? I mean, do you have a different vision, or are you just kind of just focusing on where you're at right now and just continue to go until, I don't know. I like to say it's my Holy Spirit. A lot of times I'll just be going,
Mm.
living life, and all of a sudden my Holy Spirit kind of says, "Hey, turn left," and you turn left, and before you know it, you're going down a totally different road. New people are coming into your life. What do you see for yourself?
I like that you said that because that's exactly how this business has been. I've been a serial entrepreneur my whole career, and I've never opened a business like Men's Tribal House. It is very unique because I am really being led by the Spirit. It is the right people show up at the right time, things that normally wouldn't happen. I mean, I've fought these federal fair housing cases in a lot of cities in Utah for elderly, and they don't always go well. The fact that things fell into place that we're even allowed to do what we're doing has truly been miraculous. We do have a waiting list at Men's Tribal House. My referring company is really urging me to, look down the road at more beds. They really think that a woman's facility would be a really high priority. Personally, I don't want to work with women in that capacity, hands on, but I could see that if I found a really good director or somebody to work with that wanted to run a women's program. We're just fine tuning our model right now. Hey, what's the most effective thing to do with these guys on their first week? How soon should we get them in for this type of a experience? How soon should we have them fill out, this kind of information and start asking these questions? And so we're fine tuning our program to make our experience better. But a lot what we're finding though is it's not a one size fits all. It's not so easy. Just make a calendar. Okay, day one looks like this. Day two, some guys show up feeling kind of sick. Some guys show up and we take them straight to detox. We put them in patient for a 5-day detox somewhere else at a third party. And then we pick them up and bring them to Tribal House, and they might need another week still of kind of taking it slow. Some guys are just getting out of rehab and they've got 90 days clean. Everybody is a little bit different, right? So
Yeah.
I like that we're small. I like that I only run about 20 guys, 20 clients in my house. I've got 7, 8 living staff at the house. So that's a really good ratio. If you're sending your loved one to Men's Tribal House, yeah, there's 20 clients there, but there's 7 basically live-in staff members who just look and act like the rest of the brothers, but they're the guardrails. They're the ones that keep an eye on people. They're the ones that are like, hey, you're acting a little funny. Why don't you go fill this cup up for me? A random UA just keeps people honest. And it's very easy for us to recognize a slip or a relapse because these guys show up a certain way, clean and sober, bright eyed. And if there's any variation in that, we can tell immediately. Everybody in my house, they got 15, 10, 20 years experience in addiction. So we can spot the BS, from a mile away. And so it's very helpful. I mean, it's almost like a scared straight program in a sense where you got some of these younger guys show up after their first run-in with addiction or the law, and they're seeing a 45-year-old addict who spent half his year in prison. And that dude's saying, hey, bro, this isn't fun. Why don't
Yeah.
you get this out of your life right now while you're 25 instead of waiting until you're 45? And it's taken really well. It's a very powerful life lesson when you're hearing it right from the horse's mouth who's lived this. You're like, maybe drugs aren't so glamorous. Maybe they're not my friend.
Yeah. Well, and we start out by not realizing where it is going to take us, right? I mean, when I've done some of my public talks, I did my first line of cocaine at age 17 after high school. I was working construction. I mean, we worked hard during the week and we played hard during the weekend. However, it wasn't something that I did on a continuous basis up until my later years of my life and having a stressful job. And once I had that line again and realized, my gosh, I can forget about work for a whole weekend. I'm not
Mm,
thinking about work. Next thing I knew, its claws was in me so deep. It was every weekend for 8 years. So you
yep.
don't know where it's going to take you. And if you can get the tools early, my gosh, that's just going to help you further down the line. And We was just on Good Things Utah a couple of weeks ago, the co-founder and I of the Healing Utah Success Summit, which I'd love to talk to you about. It's coming up in October. It's our fourth one. And we were talking about how hard it is to get into schools to talk about this. Principals don't want it, they don't want us in to talk about addiction. And I really believe
Really?
that yeah, I have had a heck of a time getting in. And I even know some people in the Jordan School District, and I've gone to them and they go, it's not up to us, it's up to the principals. And I really feel that it needs to
That's
be
shocking.
the junior highs first, because
Absolutely.
the majority of the people that I have spoken to on my show, their addiction starts around the age 11 up to 14,
Oh my
15,
gosh.
right around that puberty time.
Really?
And so if we're in the junior highs talking about this and educating them where their life could end up at this early age, I think I'm not going to say we're going to save everybody, because they're still going to make their own choices. And of course, their brains aren't even fully developed yet.
Hmm.
However, if we could plant that seed in there, just plant that seed, who knows where it will go?
You said something really interesting. Talked about the first time using cocaine and how you could forget about work for a weekend, right? You got so much on your plate, work day, hit the weekend. It's that escapism. That's what
Yeah.
every addict is looking for, escapism. Let me just say, if you're trying to escape, cannabis is a terrible drug for you. When I was in the throes of my addiction, when I was using everything under the sun, if I were to happen to use a little bit of cannabis, guess what I would do? I would throw all my drugs away because I would immediately feel a sense of remorse, regret. I need to be a better dad. What am I doing? Look at myself. I had this introspection. It made me feel. I didn't want to feel. And the next day I'd be so angry I'd have to go re up on my drugs again. When you just use cannabis appropriately, it is not an escape. Absolutely not. It's not the high THC stuff that you're getting on the street and smoking with a lighter. That may be an escape, absolutely, because you're out of your mind. But using a vaporizer, using a vape cartridge, using a gummy or proper tincture with the right cannabinoid balance, you are very much in tune with your feelings. You feel, you have compassion for others. You don't want to just go in the garage and isolate. You want to be around other people. You want to be a better person. It makes you go through your feelings. So that's why I say cannabis really is an anti-drug. I put everything in, whether it's Ambien, Xanax, opiate, whether it's an amphetamine, alcohol, escape, 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 escape. Every one of them I would use to escape. Cannabis, no. It doesn't cause me to escape, but it causes me to look at my life and be present. You only want to do that if you're healthy. So once you get clean and sober and you use medical cannabis appropriately, it can really help curb those triggers to want to go escape because you're like, you know what? Life's not that bad. I'm okay. I can deal with this. I'm breathing. I'm alive. I'm catastrophizing all this stuff. I'm future tripping. I'm thinking about how terrible tomorrow and next week and next year are going to be. Stop it. I'm depressed. I'm thinking about how bad last year was and with a horrible decision, and I lost my wife and I lost my business. Stop it. Be present. Be grateful for this moment right here, right now. And as addicts, we can live one day at a time. I love that mantra. That's so sacred to me. When I first heard that in my first treatment up in Ogden at the Ogden Regional ATC, first thing they told me is, oh, one day at a time. I'm like, oh, how stupid is that? How else could you live one day at a time? I mocked it. But today I hold that so close because I can live, I can be a really good husband, father, and business owner one day at a time as long as I stay present.
Yeah. And that goes with everyone. I just want to feed off of that. I think that goes with everyone, just not people in recovery, right? Because we do have to live
Mm.
just one day at a time, one moment at a time. And it's taken me almost 60 years of my life to figure that freaking crap out, to where instead of me out there trying to control everything that happens on in my life, just let life happen. And yeah, you're gonna hit a wall. And I like to use the term, we're going to have shit balls thrown at us constantly. And
Right.
some will dodge and some are going to hit us square in the freaking face and we're not going to like it. However, if we stay with that attitude going, okay, what's the lesson behind this? Why did I not see this shit ball coming at me? What's the lesson behind
Mm.
what is there that I need to see, or what's the message in the mirror? And once we start
Mm.
living life that way, my life has completely changed. I mean, I've been very fortunate, Shane, in all honesty. I've never ever gone to a recovery center, no detox, no nothing. When I just said done, I'm done. And just very, very fortunate on that arena. However, I've learned so much more about life, and I've learned so much from individuals like yourself who have been on the show as guests, who's lived in the depth of the darkness. and has had the resiliency to pull themselves out of that darkness to start a life that is just so amazing. And you talked about all the stuff that you guys do with all the guys there. You guys are out on adventures all the time, and man, that's what life is in in general. It's an
And we
adventure
forget that, don't
every
we? When we're
single day.
using, we don't enjoy, we don't smell the roses. We
Uh-uh.
don't enjoy the things. It's like becoming a kid again. Quinn did a great video and got a lot of likes on Facebook. And the guys down at the aquarium in Sandy, just looking at like swimming sea turtles and big sharks. Like their eyes are all big. It's like we're coming out of a dark cave after so long, and our eyes are readjusting to what life is again. Quinn called it learning to be a kid again and see it through those eyes. But what you said a minute ago is so powerful about it. This life is all about experiences. It's about gaining an experience. And once the shame and the regret and the sadness is taken away, um, through whatever you believe in, whatever type of healing, the light of Jesus Christ, through the atonement, through the universe, through your higher power, when you let that go and relinquish it and turn it over, you're not left with a sin or a mistake. They're all experiences, and they're for our good. And I tell these guys, you are growing huge tree rings of growth upon your soul, because only through trials and tribulations do we really grow. And the Lord is stretching you. And you agreed to this because you're a warrior and you're a mighty person. And before you came to earth, you said, I want to help, Father. How much do you want to help? He asked. And you're like, give it all to me. I'll take a ton. A lot of people were like, yeah, no, I'm in. I want to help. Like give me a little bit of hardship. And that's the majority of the people. That's the great masses. And that's fine. That's right for them. But you were like, no, I really want to take it on, because the more suffering we endure, the greater capacity we have to love. It is that mighty eternal pendulum that is so obvious. There is opposition in all things, and great learning can come through addiction. That's why so many amazing people come out of recovery. And 12th step is a real thing. You found it. We've all found it. Giving back is really, there's no greater joy. And there's just something special about somebody who really is fallen in love with 12 step. And that's the 8 guys that I have living at my house. They are recovered and they don't want to do anything else. They just want to save the suffering addict, because they know that hell. They've lived it. And it just gives them so much joy to get a dad back with his kids or get a guy off of dope. It's just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what you see a lot of people, a lot of individuals do once they get out of recovery and they've got their life. They feel like their life's on track and they're walking the right path again. That's what they want to do. I mean, I've had a couple of guests say, that's my new drug. That's my new high, is going out and helping other individuals. And in all honesty, they're helping them more than they're actually helping the other person. So it's crazy how we are all, I mean, I know you've heard this term so many times, probably the opposite of addiction is connection. The more we have that connection and the more we're out there helping individuals, my gosh, there's no way up. I mean, there's no other direction than up. That's just how I'm seeing it.
Oh, it's so fun. Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
You're awesome.
Thank you. So wrapping up here, we're coming up to the hour. Trying to think what a really good question would be for you. It's I'll just put it this way. I'm just going to use the title of the show. What does the other side of addiction mean to you? And I'm not talking
Ooh,
show. I'm just saying, what is the other side of
sure.
addiction meant for you?
The other side of addiction is forgiving yourself enough to live in a happy present state so that your addiction doesn't hold you back anymore. So it's no longer a hindrance, right? Like I'm not a disabled, broken person who can't be a good dad or can't run a good business or can't deal well with others. I might have lost some time during my addiction when I wasn't growing emotionally and I was numbing out, but that's fine. I accept that. And I believe that I'm at for a reason. And as long as I stay sober and clean, everything else works out in my life. That's what's so amazing about addicts. There's a ton of people out there that don't know their life purpose. Think of all these Hollywood celebrities that have everything they want: money, wealth, fame. They're depressed, they're suicidal, they're on many marriages. Just because you have a success in one area of your life does not guarantee happiness. We know that clearly. But for an addict, we are specially wired. We have learned that if we just do one thing, everything else works out okay. If we can stay away from our drug of choice, things click into place. My relationships are okay. I do okay at work. And every addict I've ever talked to agrees with me on that. That really is the one thing that we have to do. So if we can just focus on staying clean and sober and turning our life over to God. You got to turn your life over to a higher power. I tell my guys, shove your shoes way under your bed in the morning if you're having a hard time praying. You get up, you got to bend down to reach for those shoes. That'll remind you, I'm on my knees. Let's say my prayer right now. And if you don't believe in God, just trust me. Just test me. Just say, okay, fine. Maybe Shane is right about this whole God, devil, heaven, angels thing. And if it maybe is true, I'll just try it. I'll just put forth not even faith yet, just a little bit of hope it might be true. And I promise these guys, miracles will start happening. But truly, very few atheists come out of addiction recovery or come out of prison, right? It's like being in a foxhole. Most addicts know God because they've freaking seen the devil face to face, and God saved them at least a couple times. And so they already have a belief. It's not about church. It doesn't matter what church you go to. It's about your personal relationship with God. I call my God Jesus. It doesn't matter what you call your God, but if you call out for him, he is there. He hears you. He is aware of you. And he really is a loving father. And there is actually a plan of happiness cooler than any Hollywood movie they could ever come up with, Lord of the Rings or Thor or anything else, way beyond our imagination. But the greatest battles that are going on are unseen. Okay. We are spiritual beings, have an immortal experience, and get them to tap into that and realize their true purpose and their infinite worth. Game changer.
Yeah. Well said. And one of the greatest battles we fight is inside here.
Absolutely. Right.
Definitely inside
Yes.
there. Yeah. Yeah, very well said, Shane. Thank you so much. And again,
Thank you.
thank you for your time. And I'm so grateful that we had the opportunity to finally connect and get you on the show. And thank you for sharing what you do and your knowledge. And there's a lot of good things that's happening out there. There really is. And yeah, there's some people that I'm in correspondence with that we're even talking about wanting to do some different things to make a change. And it's so cool to be a part of this community. It's just amazing because there are definitely a lot of really good people out there. And I think you even said it a couple times during the show. I would put more of my trust in someone that's in the recovery and have understood where life was at for them and where life is at for them right now. I would put my life in their hands,
Oh, yeah.
because they
Some of the
know
best
what
people.
it takes to help you get out of that. So again, thank you
Mm.
for everything. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. This has been great.
You
Appreciate it, Al.
bet. Well, guys, again, thank you to all our past sponsors, our past guests, future guests, all my listeners, guys. Again, this wouldn't happen if it wasn't for you. You guys are the ones that's making this all possible. And remember this, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.
Mm.